What's up, nerds? It's your boy Shen here, and I'm here to bring you a series that we're going to be calling Temples and Dinos. Yes, we're going to be doing a Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons adventure. The book that we'll be using is the Tomb of Annihilation. And for the most part, we're going to be following the book along. I convinced 6 other people to kind of help out and create characters, and we kind of already got started. But I just wanted to get a intro video to kind of explain that that I was an idiot and I forgot to record day 0. So this will be an introduction to those characters that were created, a little bit of information about them, a little bit of background on kind of like what they got as a primer for day 1's video. So what I'm going to be using here is Fantasy Grounds to kind of illustrate the characters and help me with combat and everything like that, because most of our, well, all of our participants are kind of not in the same city. Definitely not in the same city. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you an introduction to our first character. First up, we have Ire, who is an Aarakocra Ranger. Specifically of the Hunter Conclave, and I'll explain that in a moment. Ire is the only character that we have that originated from Chult. Her tribe lives in the Mistcliff mountain range, and she would go, when she was younger, she would go on scouting parties to kind of map out the outskirts of her tribe's territory, but eventually that got boring. So she decided that she was going to investigate an old myth that the elders talked about called the Rod of 7 Parts. And to do so, what she was she became a stowaway on a ship off of Chult. After many years of adventuring and traveling and things like that, she overheard that there was an expedition back to Chult, and she decided this would be a good time to kind of wind her way back toward there. One of the major things I want to talk about Ire is that we are using the Unearthed Arcana Ranger Revised class. Originally, Wizards of the Coast was kind of toying around with the idea that maybe the original Ranger class that came out with the Player's Handbook wasn't quite strong enough. There were some complaints about in-game kind of how the class was played. So we're going to be using this instead of the standard Ranger. Next, we have Verlassen. He is a brass dragonborn wild magic sorcerer. His backstory is that when he was young, he was actually found as a baby and was taken in as an orphan to this kind of blacksmithing-based family. And so he grew up learning to smith armor and forge weapons and things like that. And his ability to kind of innately have some magic or control some magic further advanced his ability to smith things. So his reason for going to Chult is that he overheard about this adventure and thought that maybe this would be a good opportunity to learn more about himself and his past, or at the very least be able to find some rare metals or other things that would kind of help advance his fame as he becomes more of an artisanal crafter. Next up, we have Crow, the Kenku Grave Cleric. Crow goes around and does what he believes is the will of Kelemvor, a great deity that's kind of all about balance, specifically with regards to life and death. Crow hasn't really revealed a lot of information about himself as a character or as a person, and the reason for that is the Kenku only repeats words and phrases that it has heard before. So that is definitely something that's really enjoyable, and it continues to be just laughter-inducing. Definitely a great aspect to have in this party. Next up, we have Sheogorath, Tiefling Hexblade Warlock. Now, just as a backstory, he may or may not be related ancestrally to one of the uh, lords of the nine hells, but that's not really important. What is important is kind of just the whole hexblade aspect. Something that's super specific and kind of awesome about Sheogorath's character is the fact that he's got a medallion that he lovingly calls Shahrazad. And what happens is, with that medallion, what can happen is he can summon a weapon of some kind. Now, he and the amulet don't really see eye to eye necessarily all the time, so there is a little bit of an element, a struggle of some kind with that, and you'll see that unfold as you kind of see the character play out. Next up, we've got Sapphire Eyes of the Thorned Branches. He is a tabaxi that is a bard from the College of Swords. Now, Sapphire's family is actually quite wealthy, and it is in the trade business. Sapphire spends a lot of his time enjoying the carnal pleasures of life. But unfortunately for him, his father made a deal with a certain person, which involved a expedition to Chult. So he was placed in charge of basically the family making good on this deal. And he's not necessarily happy with it, but he's got some ideas of his own as far as making this a profitable experience. And finally, we have Shava, a wood elf druid that is part of the Circle of the Moon. Shava, when she was young, lost contact with her parents, and she spent a lot of time in the woods alone, being a hermit, not really interacting with other people, being a loner in general. Eventually, she started to develop this kind of, as she describes it, an electric feeling that she needs to try to find something that she hasn't quite discovered yet. This feeling kind of drove her to start looking into towns, and eventually she found herself in an old little shop where a merchant asked her to help them with some sort of a deal, and she obliged. So those are our adventurers. They were all called to the home of one Sindra Sylvain, a retired adventurer and merchant who in recent weeks actually started to suffer from a debility of some kind. After looking into it, she found through her sources that what she was feeling was widespread, and it seemed like there was no cure for it at all. The one common thing about all the people afflicted was the fact that they had died and had been resurrected at least once in their life. And so she asked them to all go with her on an expedition to a place called Chult. For her sources told her that whatever is causing this affliction to everybody is located there. They were transported there in a somewhat reasonable fashion. They find lodging, and that is basically all that happened on day 0. So what's going to be coming up next is some videos here for the rest of the adventures. I'll be splitting them up and everything. You will notice that there are a few things that are kind of wonky, but I'll kind of quickly explain exactly what's going on there. So it really comes down to two major things. One, this has all been kind of recorded in post before I decided that I wanted to actually upload it. So some of the information that you saw in the character sheets is a little outdated. No, updated. All the characters started at level 3 originally when the adventure started, and since then, most of them, if not all of them, have leveled up to level 4. So the character sheets that you saw earlier were level 4 character sheets, so sorry about that, but you'll get over it, I'm sure. Number 2, midway through the process of recording all of this, you'll notice that the icons for the characters changed from one thing to another. That's because I was able to commission an artist to draw up some specific character portraits, and so you'll see that there's going to be a transition kind of partway through the series. So just look out for that. Anyway, that's all I've got for you guys. Thanks for coming by. I really hope you enjoy the Temples and Dinos series. If you guys have any suggestions or questions or anything like that, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Keep in mind, we play once a month, and so I'm gonna try to get the series rolling out at a regular rate, but there might be some weeks or months that you might not get anything, so we all have lives. I'm not doing this full time, no one is, so sorry about that, but thanks in advance for your patronage. And then I think the only thing I have left to say is I will see you all next time on Temples and Dinos.